This conference will now be recorded.
So we will discuss SSIS and SQL Server Integration Services. SSIS SQL Server Integration Services. Okay. So from the first session, so we have been discussing that we will receive client files from the client, right? So millionaire, like some person who is doing a business, so he captures his business information into various systems. Like if you visit more market and DMart and all, right, like supermarkets, like whenever you buy some product, so they capture the product information by scanning that barcode. Okay, by scanning that barcode, so they capture that product information. And if you observe their monitors, no, so they capture your product information along with the product ID, product name, cost, quantity, everything into their systems. Okay, so they store that product information into a backend, like in Excel files or CSV files or text file or Access database. There are based on the system which client uses, so he stores that information into various files. So to analyze a business effectively, so he requires some third person help, right? So he will share all these source business files with our system. Now, so if client is using a multiple systems, like is storing in Excel, his business information is storing in Excel file, is storing in CSV file, is storing in text file. Okay, so clubbing these three different files into one and analyzing, which takes more time, which is a very complex task for a businessman. So this is a very complex for task for businessmen, and this is not a complex task for us. We are experts on this, right? So that's the reason, like they will come to us and they will seek for a support. They will seek for a support. Now he will share these files with us. Okay. Now, as we are experts on reading files and clubbing them and processing the data, now, where we are expert, like we know SQL language, we know SQL very well, and we know SSRS to present the data. But we are very good at R zone. Like after reading the data, after storing the data into DB and DB, then we know the SQL to process the data effectively. Then we are very good at this particular region. So data is not in this region, no, to perform. So data is in data Excel files. Now we have to copy the data from various Excel files into this DB. Okay, into this DB, we have to store the data into a SQL Server table. So after storing the data into SQL Server table, then we know SQL language to process the data by writing grouping classes, aggregate functions, ranking functions, string functions. We know how we process the data by using SQL, right? So post processing, we know the reporting tool. Like in market, we have various reporting tools, like we discussed SSRS and SSRS, Power BI, TabView, Cognos, ClickView. These are various reporting tools available in the market, and we will present the data in a reporting. Then we will give this report to the client for his analysis. Okay, the same information, same data will flow through the system, and it will be cleaned and తనకి కావాల్సిన format లో clean చేస్తారు. Then the same information will be submitted back to the client, and by looking at that report, he will analyze his business. So he will take the calls, like whether reducing the manufacturing, if it is a very less cost, if it is moving is very less than what. Now, so coming back to our SSIS, SQL Server Integration Services, right? In SQL Server Integration Services, we will take the files from the client and we read the data inside of files, and we load the data into a database SQL Server table. That is a task. To perform this task, to perform this particular task, okay, reading data, reading data from a client's file and loading the data into same SQL Server table, right? We require ETL tool, extraction, transformation, and loading, ETL tool. Okay, ETL. So extraction, transformation, and loading. So what is mean by extraction? What is mean by extraction? Reading data from Excel file, reading data from client file, whether it is a Excel file, whether it is a CSV file, whether it is a text file. reading data from a source file we call is a extraction. First step, extraction. Then after reading the data from a client file, then if the data has some unwanted information, if that data has unwanted information like a duplicate rows, unwanted columns, unwanted information, right? So then we have to convert the data. We can push it through transformations. So here we have a list of transformations, which means transformations are used to process the data. So to convert the data from one form to another form. Let's say, let's talk about a form. Okay. So in a source, we have portfolio and market value. So let's say MSF 100, MSF again 150. So next Jacob 100, again Jacob 100. Okay. Now this is a client file. So each portfolio is market value. But what and now, while after taking this data from a client file, we have to do aggregations like each portfolio wise what is the market value, which means group by portfolio sum of market value. So which means we will get two lines, right? One is for MSF, another one is for Jacob, which means applying aggregations is a one format change. So after reading data from Excel files, if you want to convert the data into another format means this is a one example. Applying aggregations like a group by class and aggregate functions on the source data is the conversion, is one example for converting data one format to another format. So after reading data from Excel file, and if you want to convert the data from one format to another format, then we use a transformations. Okay, then we use the transformation. With help of transformation, we convert the data from one format to another format. After data conversion, the result, we have to load that result into a DB table. We have to load that data. We have to save or we have to load the data into SQL Server table. We call it as a loading process. So after receiving a file from each and every organization will have at least any repo in one ETL tool. Okay, in market there are various ETL tools available, and Informatica is one ETL tool which does the same job. It reads a client file and it loads the same data into a SQL Server table. So just this is a ETL tool is used to copy data from one place to another place. Here, source is Excel, target is a SQL Server, and the same tool can be used to read the data from SQL Server, and it will also load the data into Excel. Vice versa is also possible. Okay, basically my point over here is ETL tool is used to copy the data from one place to another place. Okay, in a market we have various reporting ETL tools available. First one is the Informatica. If you heard about Informatica, is the ETL tool which does the same job. Then Talendo recent గా మార్కెట్ లోకి వచ్చింది. సో recently people have started using Talendo tool, ETL tool, which does the same job, copying data from one place and loading the data into another place. Next, SSIS, SQL Server Integration Services, is another ETL tool. Okay, any questions so far on SSIS, SQL Server Integration tool? Now if you don't have any questions, I'll take one simple Excel file and I will show you how to load that Excel file into SQL Server DB by using SSIS ETL tool. Okay, any questions so far on this process? Clear. Okay, so first, to create SSIS packages, right? So again, we have to have a Visual Studio. Just open Visual Studio. And here you just click on a new project. And to if you want to use SSIS, right, here integration service is a service we need to have, and click on this. For SSRS we use this service, reporting services. For SSIS, we use integration services. For SSAS, SQL Server Analysis Services, we use this particular service. Okay. Click on integration services, and here we have two options. Don't go by second option, select the first option, integration services project, and here you can put name of your integration project. So SSIS underscore UK. Okay. Next. So where do you want to store this particular packages? Location you can browse, and where exactly you want to store under this SSIS UK. Just create another folder. Just create another folder for your. Okay. So store under this. Select this folder. Now I am storing all my SSIS packages which I'm going to create, like in SSRS. So we have created one project. Under that project we have created multiple RDLs, right? In a similar way, I am creating one SSIS project. Under that I am saving that project in D drive UK folder. Under that I am going to create all my SSIS packages. Okay. Then click OK. Now it is creating a project. In that project we can create n number of packages. What a package does, it just reads the data from source file and it will load the data into uh, SQL server table. Okay. First, after opening it, right, so you can see a 5 tabs over: control flow, data flow, parameters, event handler, and package explorer. So we will go through each and every tab, and we discussed that transformations, right? So we read the data, ETL, we read the data from Excel file and transform the data into another format. Then we load the data, right? The data flow activities, everything you can see over here. So in a data flow, as we discussed, ETL operations, that's what we discussed, right? Let's take a paint and let's discuss more on ETL. So we talked about ETL, no? So a client file, and we read it and we convert into different format, and then we load the data into Excel as a database, right? So here we used ETL. ETL means extraction and transforming into another format and loading the result into SQL Server table. Now, in case if you receive a Excel file from the client, your source component is Excel. So we have ETL components, extraction components, transformation components, and loading components. So in each and every report, ETL tool, we have three different components: extraction components, transformation components, and loading components. Okay. If you receive Excel file, from the client, then we will have to take Excel source as a extraction component. Excel source. Excel is a source. Excel source. Excel source. And if you receive a CSV file, or if you receive a text file from the client, if you read that particular file, no, then we have to take a flat file source. This is a source component. Flat file source. Next, if you receive a SQL Server table from the client which you want to load from SQL Server DB to another SQL Server DB, okay, ఒక SQL Server DB లోని డేటాని ఇంకొక SQL Server DB లోకి లోడ్ చేయాలంటే the source ఇక్కడ ఏం చేసి SQL Server DB కాబట్టి here OLDB source. Okay, so we are going to deal three source components at the moment, and later sessions we will discuss a more source component. OLDB source. OLDB source. So three things. If you receive Excel file, so we have a three components in ETL. Every ETL tool will have a three components: extraction components, transformation components, and loading components. Three components in every tool. Extraction components, in the sense, if you're, this depends on the file which you receive from the client. Means if you receive Excel file, then in our package we have to take Excel source, because to read Excel file we have to take Excel source. And if you receive a CSV file or text file, then we will have to take a flat file source to read text file or CSV file. If you receive a SQL Server table from a client, then we'll have to use a OLDB source to read the data from a SQL Server table as a source. Okay. Now, under transformations, we will have a list of transformations. If you want to convert the Data format, we have a various comp transformations available and tool. Those are aggregate transformation. Aggregate means applying group by and aggregate functions. Okay. Now, after converting the data into other format, required format, we will have to load the data into SQL Server DB. To load, in case if you are loading data into SQL Server DB, then we have to take loading components. Okay, loading components which is ఏముంటాయంటే OLEDB destination. If you are loading the data into SQL Server, MS SQL Server, then a destination component should be OLEDB destination. If you are loading the data into Excel file, if you are loading the data into Excel file, then which component we have to take, which destination component we have to take? We have to take Excel destination. We have to take Excel destination. If you are loading the data into CSV file, if you are loading the data into CSV file or text file, we have to take a flat file destination. So each and every ETL tool will have a three components: source components, destination components, and transformation components. There are three components you will have in each and every ETL tool. So in case of SSIS, if based on input file, if you receive Excel file, then we'll have to use Excel source. If you receive CSV or text file, we'll have to use a flat file source. If you receive a SQL Server table, we have to use a OLDB source. Okay. In case of the destination components, remain same. In case if you want to load the data into SQL Server, we'll take OLDB destination. In case if you want to load the data into Excel, we'll take Excel destination. If you want to load the data into a text file or flat CSV file, will take a flat file destination. Any questions on components, loading source components, destination components, and transformations? Okay. Next. So after opening this SSIS package, no, all this whatever we discussed so far, these extraction components, transformation components, loading components, all those components are available under data flow tab. All the components, if you look at this after clicking on data flow tab, here you can see these are the list of transformation to transform the data from one format to another format. These are the list of transformations we have to format to convert the data from one format to another format. Next, what are the source component? As I mentioned, all ETL components will be available under this data flow tab. Source components. Okay. If you receive a Excel file, then we have to use Excel source to read the Excel file. If you receive a flat file, which is nothing but a CSV or text file from the client, we'll have to use a flat. So just drag and drop. It's like similar to SSRS tool. We have to drag and drop all these things. Next, destination components. These are the destination components. If you want to load data into Excel file, target file is Excel, then Excel destination, flat file destination, and OLDB destination. So we will see only three as of now, and will in later sessions we'll discuss about other destinations and other sources. Okay. Any questions so far before creating a simple SSIS package for loading a data from Excel file into a SQL Server DB? I'll just take, I'll tell you the steps to follow to create any SSIS package which extracts data from Excel file and loads the data into a SQL Server DB. Click on control flow. So first, after opening a new project, right, after creating a new project, and here similar to SSRS, if you want to create another SSIS package, right click on this SSIS package and click on new SSIS package, which creates new SSIS package. Okay. If you want to rename this SSIS package, F2, and you can rename it. Okay. First SSIS package. But here we will follow naming conventions to follow to create SSIS package. Every package that you create, we should follow naming convention pkg underscore, which means package pkg underscore, then you put the name of the package based on the task it performs. Pkg underscore first SSIS package. Okay, first SSIS. So here the extension of the file is .dtsx. DTSX is data transformation service expression. So you can just what is the extension for SSRS report? It's a RDL, right? .RDL. So dot RDL means the report definition language. Here dot DTSX. Okay, fine. Close this. So now I'll show you simple Excel file which we are going to load into SQL Server table. So consider, so this is the file which we have received from the client to load the data into a SQL Server. Okay, this is a client file. This client file has only four columns: portfolio column, investment and quantity and price. Okay, this file has a four columns, and now we have to create SSIS package to load this data into SQL Server DB. So that is a requirement. Now to load this data into SQL Server DB, do we have a table created already in SQL Server table? Do we have a table created? No, right? So first step, we have to create a table in a SQL Server. First, let's create a table in SQL Server. First, we go and create a server. So create, I am creating one schema for you. Okay, create schema loading. Load is one schema, or else you can take SSIS in one schema. Okay. I have created subfolder in, so now just creating a table. So create table SSIS schema name dot first look the portfolio information. You can say portfolio details. Okay. So how many columns we have in our resource? Take four columns, right? Four columns. Portfolio is, let's make it as n varchar now. So why I have taken n varchar, we'll explain in another 15 minutes. Okay, n varchar of 100 float. Yeah. So first you need to create a table to load the data from Excel file, client file. Okay. Now, so now we have a target table. So we have to load a data from Excel file into this particular SQL Server table, right? So here is the file, source file. We have received a source file from the client, and now we have to load this data into this particular SQL Server table. Now let's see what are the steps we need to follow for creating SSIS packages for reading simple Excel file. First, you close the file. First step, after creating a package in SSIS, first step in control flow tab. We will discuss about control flow tab in later sessions. Okay. First step, take data flow task, drag and drop into control flow. First step, drag and drop data flow task in a control flow. After that, you just right click on it and click on edit. Okay. Otherwise, if you double click on it, both are same. So you can right click on data flow task, click on edit, or you can go back to control flow, or you can double click on this. Okay. So first step in reading any file, client file, and loading the data into SQL Server DB. No. So first step, drag and drop data flow task into control flow tab. After that, double click on it and you will be navigated to data flow tab. You will be navigated to data flow tab, and over here we have to mention a flow. So now tell me, what is first, creating any SSIS package, you need to have a you need to have a question. So what is our source? So what is our source? What is the source file in our case? It is a Excel file, right? Then go to sources. It is a Excel file. Then drag and drop. Then it's done. Next, do we need to change the data format? I think the right now there is no format is required, no transformations required. Okay, then fine. Now, what is the source where we have to load? We have to load the data into OLDB destination, SQL Server, right? What is the destination components then? To load data into MS SQL, what is the destination component we have to use? We have to use OLDB destination, drag and drop. That is done. Now, so If you look at the source component, Excel source, here we have a two arrows, down arrows. One is a blue and one other one is a red, right? While reading, so this Excel source will read Excel file. While reading Excel file, if there is any error, if it throws any error, that error information will flow through this arrow. Okay, the error information will flow through this arrow. And if the Excel source is reading data from Excel file, that data will flow through this data arrow. So that's the reason we call this as a data path. This is a data path and this is a error path. So for each and every source, there would be, for each and every transformation and source, there would be two arrow marks, down arrows. The first blue one is data flows through this arrow, data flow through this arrow, or error information. In case if there is any error while running this particular transformation, that error information will flow through this. Okay, fine. Now, so we have taken Excel source to read Excel file, and we have taken a OLDB destination to load the data. So we haven't defined which Excel file it has to read, right? Simply we have taken Excel source, simply we have taken OLDB destination, but we haven't mentioned which Excel file this particular source has to read. Now, Excel file is stored somewhere. Excel file is stored in a D drive somewhere in a SSIS. Okay, this is Excel file. Now we want to read this Excel file, and we want to store the data into destination SQL Server DB on table. Now, so first, to read Excel file, we'll have to create a connection. We'll have to create a connection to this, and we have to create a connection. And after creating a connection, it will read this particular file. The data which is in the file will flow through this connection, and this Excel source will read all the data from this Excel file through this connection. Then same data it will flow from this arrow to here while destination. While destination accepts the data from other, and then it will, after accepting the data from Excel file, it will push the data into OLDB destination, which is nothing but SQL Server. So we have to create a destination connection. We have to create a source connection. So in source connection, we will mention which Excel file to read. In destination connection, we will mention which SQL Server and which DB and which table to load. Okay. ఈ సోర్స్ కనెక్షన్ లో మనం ఏం డిఫైన్ చేస్తామంటే ఏ ఎక్సెల్ ఫైల్ రీడ్ చేయాలి, we will define in the source connection, and what we will define in destination connection, to which SQL server, to which DB, in which table we have to load. We are loading the data. That information we will specify in a destination connection. And so, what is the name of a source connection? As you are creating connection to the Excel file, we call it the Excel connection. This is nothing but an Excel connection. And this, can you guess the name of this connection? Can you guess the name of this connection? What is the name of this connection? Can you guess? So OLDB connection. So the names are relevant names and they use the relevant names. This is a OLDB connection. In case if you want to load the data into destination SQL Server DB, so we have to create a OLDB connection. So, okay, let's create a Excel connection. So here we have a connection manager box to create a connection. So we have to create one source connection to read the Excel file, one source connection, one destination connection. That's it. Normal. So right click on this connection manager box. Here, if you go to new connection, you can see a list of connections available. These are the list of connections SSIS engine will support. Okay, SSIS engine supports these many connections. Now, so let's create a source connection. So we have to read a source file, Excel file. So right click and go to new connection. Here we have to take a Excel source, Excel connection this called. Take Excel connection, and you have to browse a file which you want to load. Click on browse option, and which file we want to load. SSIS. This is the file I want to load. No, I want to read. Select this portfolio details and click on open. Now, what is the version of this Excel file? Is it a 2007 version, or you have to select the right version? Okay. Now this checkbox, let's talk about this checkbox. Is your file has a first row as a column names. So me file lo first row లో column names ఉన్నాయా? First row has a column name. If your source file has a column names in a first row, this is a first row and this is a second row, right? So do we have a column names in the first row? Yes. So if yes, then keep it checked. You check this. If your file is not having a column names in a first row, then uncheck it. Okay, right now check it. Reason being, we have a column names in Excel file, and click OK. Now I have created Excel connection to read the portfolio details Excel file. Now we have to use this connection in Excel source. So right click, click on edit and browse the connection over here. We have to browse the connection, and this connection is pointing to portfolio details Excel file, right? So how many sheets one Excel file can have? It can have a multiple Excel sheets, right? From which sheet you want to read the data? I want to read the data from sheet 1. Select a sheet 1, and if you click on preview, it will show you the data available in the sheet. Portfolio, investment, quantity, price. Okay, click on close. Now if you go to column section, here what are the columns you want to read from Excel file? Now I want to read all my columns. Portfolio I want to read from this table, investment column, quantity, price column. So I want to read all these 4 columns from Excel file into a SQL server, right? Now in case if you don't want to read any specific column, then uncheck it, which means now Excel source will not read the price column from the Excel file. You check this and then click OK. Now we read Excel file successfully. So now data will flow through blue arrow, right? Take a blue arrow and drop it on YLDB destination. Okay. It is taking time. So meanwhile, if you have any questions, you just drop your question chat box. Continue waiting. Let's wait. Okay. Take this and drop it. Okay. Now, so let's create a destination connection. Right click, new connection, and here we will have to take OLDB connection. Just take OLDB connection and click on add option. Okay. Now here you have to click on a new button. Click on a new button, and we have to add to SQL Server credentials and to which SQL Server you want to load. I want to load my data into this particular SQL Server. I want to load the data into this particular SQL Server. Cancel it and open Visual Studio and paste the SQL Server name and credentials of the SQL Server. Okay, SCA, SCA and SA123. Now, to which database you want to load? I want to load to Power BI. So in for next session, I'll create SSIS-DB. Okay. So usually we load the data into SSIS-DB database in real time. Okay. Power BI database. Let's verify the connection once. Connection succeeded. Click OK and click OK and click OK. Now I have created destination connection. This is a source connection to Excel file. This is a destination connection to load the data into SQL Server DB. Now we have to use destination connection in a OLDB destination. Right click and click on edit, and here we have to browse the connection, OLDB connection. Next, if you have table created already, destination table already created, just take browse this table over here. So browse this table over here from the drop down. The SSIS, right? SSIS. What is the table? SSIS portfolio details. Select this SSIS portfolio details. In case if you want to see the existing data in this table, click on view existing. There is no data loaded into this table right now. Click OK. Okay. So first step, browsing the OLDB connection. Second step, to which table you want to load the data. Select that table over here from this drop down And we'll talk about all these options one by one: keep identity, keep nulls, and data access mode in later sessions. We'll get confused right now. So we'll talk about this option later. Okay. And click on a mapping tab. Click on a mapping tab. Over here, the columns which you see in the left side box are from, these are the columns which are coming from Excel file, and these are the columns from SQL Server table. These are columns from SQL Server table. These are all the columns from SQL Server table, and these are the columns from Excel file. So if column names are same, Excel లో ఉన్న కాలమ్ నేమ్స్ అండ్ డెస్టినేషన్ ఉన్న కాలమ్ సేమ్ అయితే ఆటో మ్యాప్ అయిపోతాయి. ఆటో మ్యాప్ అవ్వలేదు అనుకోండి ప్రస్తుతానికి. ఓకే, సో వీ హ్యావ్ టు మ్యాప్ దెమ్. So from source Excel file, from source portfolio, whatever data I am reading from source Excel file, portfolio column on data, it has to load under this column. Whatever we are reading from investment column, it has to load under investment. So we have to map the column source file columns, destination table columns. We have to map over here in the mapping step. So here portfolio is a destination column, and source column is a portfolio, and here source column is investment, and here source column is quantity, here source column is a price. Okay, then after mapping, just click OK. Now we are done with the package. Now just save it, Control S. Before running this package, now we are done with the package, and so we have completed the package. So first step, I'm just repeating the steps. In a control flow, we have to drag and drop the data flow task. Okay, and then next step, double click on data flow tab, and over here we'll have to find what is the source file which I received from the client. So I received Excel file, that is the reason. From other sources I picked up Excel source, then I want to load the data into SQL Server DB. So that is the reason I have taken a while DB. So while DB destination over here, and then no transformation required. I'm not using any transformation. Later session we will use it. Okay, now to read the Excel file, so we have created Excel connection to read this D drive low SSIS-1 portfolio details file we are reading, and this file has column names as in the first row. That is the reason we are checking this. Then it is reading all the columns. We are reading all the columns from a source, and then we are dumping it into destination. So if you want to run this package, no, here we have a start button. Just if you click on start button, what it does, it will read the Excel file data and it will dump the data into SQL Server table. See, 3 rows in read చేసింది, 3 rows dump చేసింది. ఒకసారి వెళ్దాం, go back to SQL and verify whether it is loaded or not. See, so this is how we load the data from client file into SQL Server DB. Any questions on this SSIS package? So after this session, I will give you a source file, source Excel file. Then you will have to read that file through SSIS packages, then load the data into SQL Server DB. Okay. Any questions on this package? Okay. So next task, next point. So now I will take data DB to DB. So I will take the data from one database table, DB table. Then I will load that same data into another DB table. So I have loaded information. So Excel file ni SSIS portfolio details table load chesana kada. Now I want to load the same data. I want to load the same data into another table load shell. I'm going to create a new database now. Right click, new database, SSIS DB, SSIS DB, click OK. Now I want to store same data over here. Take a session on SSIS DB, create this table. Okay, schema లేదు కదా. So create a schema, capital letters. Okay. Okay. Now, here we have two databases in our SQL Server. First one is a Power BI database and SSIS-DB database. So there is one table in Power BI database which is a portfolio details table. It has three records. Now I want to load data from this table to this table. As a SSIS-DB లోన ఈ table లో data load చేయాలనుకోండి. So what is the approach that you follow? So in the same case, apart from creating SSIS package, can we load the data from one table which exists in another database into SSIS DB? So Power BI database లో ఉన్న portfolio details లో ఉన్న data ని I want to load the data into this table. SSIS DB లో ఉన్న table లోకి load చేయాలి. So apart from creating SSIS package, do we have any a way to load the data? Copying data from one table to another table in SQL Server. Do you remember? Copying data from one SQL server to another SQL, sorry, copying data from one table to another table. If you remember syntax, you can drop that query in a chat box. Okay, fine. So now I will create a simple SSIS package. Now I'll create a simple SSIS package, a simple SSIS package to load data from Power BI database. Power BI database లో ఉన్న table ఉండేటాన్ని, so I want to load it to SSIS DB. Okay, SSIS DB లోకి load చేయాలి. Now just go to SSIS Visual Studio and let's create a new package. Let's create a new package. Right click on SSIS packages and new SSIS package and rename the package F2. So pkg underscore db2 db అనుకుందాం. Okay, enter. So first step, what is the first step to create SSIS package? Drag and drop data flow task. Drag and drop data flow task into control flow. That is the first step. Next step, double click on it. Now, what is our source? So as per the requirement, we have to take the data from Power BI DB and load the same data into SSIS DB table. So what is our source right now? What is the source component? What is our source component right now as per the requirement? Which source component we have to take? So OLDB source, it's a OLDB source. Okay, it's a OLDB source. So OLDB source as we are reading data from SQL Server table, right? Now I want to load the data into another SQL Server database. My source is SQL Server and target is SQL Server. So I'm taking OLDB destination. So over here, SSIS is a tool to copy the data from one place to another place. So don't stick to Excel. SSIS package is a ETL. SSIS is a ETL tool which is used to load the data from Excel to Microsoft SQL Server. So it's not like that. It's a tool to copy the data from one place to another place. Don't mention one place. You can mention data repository. You can mention data source. Okay, fine. One database to another database. That is also fine. Now, so we have taken OLDB source. We have taken OLDB destination. So we have to create a connection, right? So let's create a connection. Right click. And what is the connection that we have to create for OLDB source? We have to create OLDB connection. Click on new connection and click on a new OLDB connection. Click on add option, and here I have already created a connection. Don't use this. Let's click on a new, and here we have to provide SQL Server name. So let's provide a SQL Server name. Let's provide a SQL Server name and authentication mode to a SQL Server. SA and SA123. And what is the source? What is the source? The Power BI, right? Power BI. This is nothing but a source connection. Source connection. So rename this as a source F2 and source connection. Okay. Now we have to create destination connection, right? Again, this is a OLDB connection. Right click So every time you no need to go to new connection to the list. Here we have a shortcut option. Right click. Here we have a new OLDB connection. Click on new OLDB connection and click on new and provide a SQL server name. Select authentication. Okay, then to which DB you want to load the data? SSIS DB. SSIS DB. Click on test connection and click OK and OK. So this is a destination connection, right? The destination connection. Okay. Now, so go to OLDB source, right click, go to OLDB source. So tell me which connection we have to take here. So we have to take source connection, right? So we have to take source connection and which table you want to read from a source. Which table you want to read from a source? From the drop down, you select the table. Okay. What is the table? What is the table? SSIS portfolio details. Select this. And if you want to read all the columns from a source table, just select all the columns. Click OK. Now we have to take blue path. Data flows through this data path arrow. Then right click on OLDB destination. Click on edit. And to which table you want to load the data? I want to load the data into SSIS portfolio details, which is in SSIS DB. And mappings. కాలం నేమ్స్ సేమ్గా ఉంటాయి అంటే ఆటోమేటిక్గా మ్యాప్ అయిపోతాయి. కాలం నేమ్స్ డిఫర్గా ఉంటే ఆటోమేటిక్గా మ్యాప్ అవ్వ మనం మ్యాప్ చేయాల్సి వస్తుంది. ఓకే, click OK. Now to run this SSIS package, we click on a start button. Click on start button. Now this SSIS package is going to run. So now it is running. So after executing the SSIS package, if execution stop చేయాలంటే ఇక్కడ stop symbol అని చూడండి. ఇక్కడ stop debugging. Now if you want to have a shortcuts, right? F5 to run SSIS package, use F5. F5 click చేస్తే run అవుతుంది SSIS package. To stop the execution of the package, again shortcut is Shift F5. Shift F5. If you want to run SSIS package, click on F5. Okay. Now if you want to stop the execution of the package, click on Shift F5. Okay. Now we successfully loaded data from this table, which is created in a Power BI database, to this table. Now can you tell me how many records we will have in this table? Anyone? How many records? We will have in a destination table? SSIS DB లో ఉన్న portfolio details table ఎన్ని రికార్డ్స్ ఉంటాయి ఇప్పుడు? Take your own time. How many records we will have? How many records? సోర్స్ టేబుల్ లో 3 రికార్డ్స్ ఉంది, డెస్టినేషన్ లో 4 వచ్చే ఛాన్స్ ఉన్నాయంట. మేబీ ప్రాసెసింగ్ ఏం లేదు కాబట్టి 3 records కదా. Okay, let's go to target table and execute. We have a 9 records. Reason, we have executed same package 3 times. You remember, to explain shortcuts, I have triggered the same SSIS package 3 times. That is the reason we have to be very conscious, very careful while executing SSIS package in a real time. In a real time, if you want to test whether it is running fine or not, if you click on start button, no, if the client file has a 1 lakh records in a source file, all 1 lakh records will be loaded into destination in a seconds of time. We cannot ఇక్కడ కంట్రోల్ జెడ్ వర్క్ అవుతుంది. వన్స్ లోడ్ అయిపోయిన తర్వాత కంట్రోల్ జెడ్ చేస్తే లోడ్ అండూ కావు. సో వీ హ్యావ్ టు బి వెరీ కేర్ఫుల్ వైల్ వర్కింగ్ ఆన్ SSIS, రైట్? సో యాజ్ వీ రన్ దిస్ ప్యాకేజ్ 3 టైమ్స్ రన్ చేసాం కాబట్టి 3 టైమ్స్ ఏమైంది, OLDB source లో 3 times 3 times right అయిపోయింది. సో 3 into 3 9 records, right? Any questions so far? And we have created 2 simple SSIS packages to load data from Excel file into DB and DB to DB. Any questions? Fine. So we'll connect in next session then.